So now we move on to importing media. Now you'll either take the media direct out of the camera, as in the case of this little STHC card, or you will import media that you've already got on hard drive. And the third way is to actually bring media off tape like DV cam or HDV tape, and you can actually capture that direct into Final Cut Pro. Okay, so to start with, I'll take this little media card, I'll put it into the Mac, and once it's actually mounted on the desktop, okay, so we can see it's mounted on the desktop and it's already opened up straight into Final Cut Pro 10. So effectively, as I scrub through each of these clips, or skim through, which is a proper term, you can see each of the clips that I can import. So all that media is accessible. Now, in terms of bringing a clip in, find the clip that you want. Let's say I like this one. But notice it's a little bit wonky at the start, so I'll press I for in, and that marks the range. You can see the actual yellow outline is actually marked 9 seconds into the shot, and I'll come out just before it goes wonky at the end. So press spacebar to play, and O for out. Okay, now if I press import selected, I get a bunch of options. Now, you got to be pretty careful here. This is where it all really comes together. You need to define where the media is actually stored on hard drive, and you need to define whether you want it to go into an existing event or whether you want to create a new event. An event is simply the area where the content gets stored within the Final Cut Pro 10 interface. Okay, so I'm going to create a new event, and I'm going to call this one Captured Media. Okay, and notice beneath it, it says Save To, and I've got options. If I click the 2 arrows here, I can either save to the 15-inch SSD, which is my boot drive, which is not where I want to save to, or I can save to Footage Library, which has 1.9 terabytes free. So that's a good size hard drive where I want to store the content. Okay, create optimized media. Yes, that comes back to what I said in preferences, that if the media is difficult for Final Cut Pro 10 to work with, it will put it into an edit-friendly type codec. So yes, I do want to create optimized media. I do not want to analyze for color balance. I do not want to find people. I don't want it to do anything with my audio. All those processes you can deal with later. For the moment, I just want to get the content onto hard drive. So if I select import, then you can see that we've got a spinning little area there. It went very quickly, and it's got the one shot that I told it to get for me. Now you can also import multiple clips at a time. I can highlight all of those clips and just say import selected. Again, you get asked the same questions. Add to an existing event, captured media. That's the one that I just set up. Or you can create a new event. You'll notice that it's grayed out, but it's already saying that it will put it onto the hard drive Footage Library, which has 1.9 terabytes free. So that's fine, and it keeps all the other settings as I set them up already. Okay, so hit import. Okay, the clips are actually going in, and it's got all of them, so it didn't take very long at all. And there's an orange line through each of those clips to say that they're already on hard drive. So if I close this window here, you can see, and this is the event, this is what I was talking about, saying it will put it into an event, which it is called captured media, which is what I specified. Just a few other things about the interface. If I click here, I can actually reduce or increase the size of the representation of each of the clips. So I'll make that as small as possible. And by pressing this button here, I can look at them in list mode, or I can look at them as a series of thumbnails. Now, thumbnails is good, certainly at this point when I haven't labeled anything, but once you get onto labeling your media, it can actually be very good to go through and name each of these, and then you get a list of media showing them according to the names you've given them, as opposed to spurious numbers like 2008-12-31, which doesn't mean a whole lot. Okay, so all that media has been captured to hard drive. So that's the first way you can do it. The other way is you can actually import off hard drive. Now if I just clear the desktop and open up my hard drive, you can see that on this hard drive I've got a bunch of different things. I've got folders which I've got media stored in. I've got Rome DSLR, New York Staten Island Ferry, Bahamas. I've also got Final Cut Pro events and Final Cut Pro projects. Now this is the place where Final Cut Pro 10 will file everything away on hard drive. Now I did make the point earlier that you need to be quite careful about labeling things, and particularly that you need to be quite careful about defining where everything goes. And way back when we talked about preferences, I said that it can either put things into, if I just go to preferences here, if we go to the import menu, it can copy files to Final Cut Pro events folder. Now the Final Cut Pro events folder is actually located on hard drive. We can see it here. It's got Final Cut events and it's got Final Cut projects. So that's what that was referring to in preferences when we set things up. I choose not to copy things to the Final Cut events folder, but it can be advantageous. You choose your own method. Personally, I store things on hard drive and then I know where to find them. And a lot of what I bring into Final Cut Pro 10 is actually brought in from cameras which may not be supported native by Final Cut Pro 10. So you need to convert the footage prior to actually bringing it into Final Cut Pro 10 and then point it to a folder on a hard drive and say that's the content which I want to import. Okay, so that's where we're at now. We want to bring in some content from hard drive. So if I close the preferences, click on the hard drive where you want to bring the content into, meaning this is where the actual content is actually going to be stored, or it's going to be referenced to from this hard drive. So click on the hard drive where I want to bring the content into, control click on the hard drive and say new event. And I'm going to call this event, I'm going to call it Rome. Okay, and then I'm going to create another event. Again, control click on the hard drive where you want to bring the content into, and new event, and I'm going to call this one Bahamas. Okay, now on the Bahamas event, just highlight the event, say import media, and then click on the hard drive called footage library. That's the hard drive I've got here, and I can see all my choices, and I want to bring in the Bahamas footage and the media, Bahamas, and that's all of the footage. And you'll notice that I've got a bunch of options here. I do not want to copy the files to the Final Cut events folder. As I'd already said, I want the footage to remain where it is. It's already on that hard drive, so it will be referenced to. I do want to import the folder as keyword collections. You can see the folder is called Bahamas, so that label is going to be assigned to each of these clips, and I want to create optimized media. Now that doesn't mean that optimized media will be created. It means if Final Cut Pro 10 sees that it's necessary to create optimized media because the original format of the content is difficult for it to work with, then it will put it into another format, which will be ProRes. Okay, the rest I leave unchecked. As I said, I don't want to create proxy media. That's not necessary. I don't want to analyze color balance. I don't want to find people and put them all into a folder. Okay, so now I just hit import and it brings the content in. And very quickly we can see, if I go to the icon view, that all the Bahamas footage has now been brought into that area, and it's in the event called Bahamas, and there's a collection called Bahamas which was taken from the folder. And another one, let's go again, Rome, import files, and I'll go and I'll find the folder titled Rome, and here we go. It's actually called Rome DSLR, and I'll go into that folder and I'll take all the clips and I'll say import. And very quickly, all that content is brought into Final Cut Pro 10. Now, like I said, you can see it's working, processing files for import. That means it's actually bringing the content in, and if need be, it's going to transcode that into another format. So we can see that we've got a spinning wheel on the dashboard, which means it's actually processing the content. It may be that it needs to convert it into another format. It may mean that it's actually generating thumbnails just so that we can see each of the thumbnails to represent the media. There's a lot of stuff that Final Cut Pro 10 does in the background, and basically you define some of it, and some of it you've got to let Final Cut Pro 10 just get on with the processes that it needs to do. Now we can see that that is still spinning, and if I click on the dashboard, it will show us it's rendering. And if I open up rendering, generating audio waveforms. Okay, like I said, there's a lot of processes that go on in the background of Final Cut Pro 10, and generating audio waveforms is one of them. Another one is creating the thumbnails. Now the thumbnails means that we can see each of the actual clips here. So sometimes it will do that. Other times, it will actually transcode the media if you've got that option checked, which I showed you in preferences, to transcode to an edit friendly format. Okay, so I can now skim through each of these clips and just get a good look at all the content that is there. Now I'll point out at this stage that to turn skimming on, you just press S, and if skimming doesn't work, as you can see there, press S, and now skimming has been invoked and you can skim through each of the clips. It can be advantageous to switch it off. Press S to turn skimming on or off. And if you want to hear it with the audio, it's Shift S. And now you can hear that I'm scrubbing through the audio at the same time. Shift S to turn the audio skimming off. So S to skim, S to switch skimming off, and Shift S to actually scrub through the media and hear it at the same time. Okay. And the third way is to actually bring media in from tape. Now I've got an old HDV camera here, and DV cameras will work just as well. So just take a Firewire cable and actually plug it into the Firewire port on the camera, and then plug the Firewire into the computer itself. Now this isn't going to be relevant to a lot of people because a lot of us are now working file-based. Regardless, if you've got old archival material on DV or HDV, or if you still happen to be working with one of those formats, it can be advantageous just to actually bring it in direct off tape. Switch on the camera and make sure that the camera is in VTR mode, and then press the little camera icon, which is bottom left just near the events browser. Open that up, and you can see here in the list we've got Sony, HDV, VCR. Okay, so if I press the space bar to play, okay, you can see and you can hear the footage. Now you can only bring in one clip at a time using this method. So it's as simple as just hitting import, and then you'll get the familiar dialog box that we'd already seen, and you can choose to create a new event, and I'll call this one tape footage. Okay, I want to create a new event, which is, the event is going to be called tape footage, and I'll save the footage to footage library, which means it's going to put it direct on that hard drive. This will actually go into the events folder itself. So I'll leave all the settings as I'd had them previously. No to create proxy media, no to analyze color balance or find people, and just hit import and press play. And whatever is now playing will actually be captured into the event that you'd just specified onto the hard drive that you'd specified. Okay, so I do realize that most of us aren't going to be working with tape these days, but the facility is there if we need it. Now I did mention it will work with DV or DV cam tape, and it will work with HDV footage. If you want to get more sophisticated and start bringing uncompressed footage off tape, if you want to start working with some of the more high-end formats which are still tape-based, you'll need to look towards third-party capture utilities. Have a look at what Blackmagic, AJA, Matrox, they've all got things in place to actually enable high-end tape capture. Okay, so you can see that that footage off tape has now been captured onto hard drive. Okay, so it's a pretty simple process really. Most of what I do is I transcode my material direct from Camera Original into a folder on hard drive, and then I import the folder. But the other two methods, direct from card and direct from tape, they're both there if you want to access them.